Koinos mining and why it doesn't really matter. Now, I want to make this video and I kind of don't want to make this video, and I do want to make this video. The reason why I do want to make this video is because I realize that I can't talk in front of the camera and I can't enunciate my words. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that I haven't spoken to anyone much in a really long time because of this whole pandemic. So that's why I want to make this video. The reason why I don't want to make this video is because this topic has been hashed on so heavily in the Discord chat group that it's useful for people to understand this in the next 3 months, but after 3 months, no one's going to care about this topic anymore and this video is going to go to shit. Alright, so a brief history about Koinos mining. On October 13th, the blockchain was launched on the Ethereum network using the proof of work as a way to distribute the tokens. Now, the token distribution is going to last about 180 days, or when approximately 100 million tokens have been distributed. And the mining is going to be done using a CPU only. There's no GPU mining and obviously no ASICs mining. And the reason why that occurred was because the chances of you having a high-power GPU is much less than the chance of you having a high-power CPU. Some of these GPUs cost thousands of dollars, whereas most people can get a really powerful CPU for about $500. So this is the first time I've ever seen proof of work being used to distribute a coin in the mining process. It's a very novel approach, but in many ways this is actually kind of like brilliant. In this proof of work mining, what essentially happens is that each miner is responsible for their own mining processes. No miners compete with other miners. You will constantly find people trying to make these parallels, but when you are mining on the Koinos miner, you're not competing with anyone else. The miner is running, you set a period of difficulty. Say for example, you choose a 1 hour difficult proof. It means that your computer should be able to find a proof for that function within an hour, normalized. If you set the miner to 2 hours, on the other hand, it should take 2 hours to solve what should be a 2 hour proof. Once that proof is found, that proof is submitted to the blockchain. They verify your proof, and then the smart contract pays you out for that proof. The more difficult the proof is, the more rewards you get. So if you choose to solve a more difficult proof in terms of time, a 1 hour proof, a 2 hour proof, a 6 hour proof, whatever it may be, if you choose to solve a more difficult proof, you should get more rewards for that proof because you spent more time finding the solution to it. Now, if you have a more powerful computer, then you should be able to solve a more difficult proof in that same hour. So the more powerful your computer is, not the faster you can solve the proof, the more difficult of a proof you can solve within that allotted time. So what actually happened with this process? The CPU mining farms caught on to this, and they used their computing power to mine the tokens. Once they got on board, they were able to mine an obscene amount of tokens because they had a lot of processing power. The total amount of computing power that these miners have outperforms any single chip computer that we may have. Now, I actually went ahead and on the first day of mining, I rented a Amazon Web Service server, a 96 core server, and I found that I was able to get my price for mining down to about 2 to 3 cents per token. By day 7, when the miners actually caught on, they had squashed the price of mining tokens so much that you were able to buy the tokens for sub 1 cent. Right now, it's January 4th, 2021. Happy New Year, by the way. You're able to buy a token for roughly 1 cent to 1.5 cent, 0.015. I can't compete with that price. I'm sorry. In terms of electrical cost, if I had the computer myself, the equipment, or if I rented the servers and rented the computing time, processing time from AWS, I still couldn't get down to 1.5 cent. So for that very simple reason, the token is actually more accessible to me because of these mining farms, and it's actually more accessible to everyone. You can't buy a token for 1 cent right now for a blockchain that's offering this much potential. Now, this next point I'm going to go into is a little bit funny. In most cases, you're going to see teams who develop blockchains ICO. They're going to ask you for some type of funding. They're going to take that money and they're going to use it to build a project, right? Now, it probably would have made a lot of sense for the Coinos team to mine the tokens themselves, sell a portion of it for more than 1 cent, and make some money off of it in order to be able to fund their ICO, to fund the development. But I think I need to highlight a few things with the way they actually approach the distribution of the token. I've got this written down here, and I wrote that Koinos is not afraid of not being the biggest whale because they believe that the chain has all the tools necessary to self-govern. You know, I think about that, but I'm pretty sure the Koinos team is not letting this fly. They probably had plans to mine the token themselves and mine a lot of it. However, because these miners came in and started like basically wrecking any small miner out there, I'm pretty sure they're taking advantage of the fact that they can get this token for less than what they can mine it for. Again, you just can't find that many CPUs tied together. I mean, I highly doubt the Koinos team has 300,000 CPUs just sitting around ready to mine this token. It would have made more sense for them just to write the Genesis block with as many tokens as they need and then sell the rest. But it didn't do that. The other thing that I wrote here was that Koinos is not afraid that anyone else who might be a whale would be able to harm the blockchain. Now, I really say these two things because I don't think whales are trying to self-sabotage. Clearly, these guys did not get an airdrop. They didn't get these tokens out of thin air. They paid for them. As a token holder myself, I paid for these tokens. So it's not in my best interest to just shoot myself in the foot and try to find ways to sabotage this token. I really want this blockchain to succeed, and their success equals to my success. So I think you're going to find a lot of whales who have a lot of interest in supporting this project in the best way possible. Now, the third point that I wrote, it may make a lot of sense to some people, may not make a lot of sense to some people. The Koinos team actually had to spend their own money to buy these tokens. You could debate whether or not that's factual or not. I don't know, right? But if they wanted 500,000 token supply at the current rate, they're spending about $75,000. Depending on who you are, that may or may not be a lot of money. But still, the fact that a blockchain developer decided to spend money to launch the token is ludicrous. So the reality is I don't know any blockchain that distributed their token and had a successful launch and lost money doing so. Coinos lost money doing this. They spent their own money buying tokens in order to be able to move their project forward. Let that sink in a little bit. No blockchain has ever lost money after launching, unless it was a shitcoin. So the end result was that if you wanted to be part of this project, right, you would have probably not made a lot of tokens through mining, because had mining been more distributed, your rewards would be much less, because generally speaking, everyone has roughly the same computing power. It's only the miners with large computing farms that actually really won this battle. Now, if you wanted to buy 10,000 tokens at 1 cent, it's roughly $100, and so on, multiply that out. It's a huge number when you want to stack tokens. If you wanted 1 million tokens, right now it would cost you almost $15,000 to do so. But if I had to do that on my own, I would spend easily 3 times that money. Quite frankly, at 1 cent a token for what Coinos is offering, you really just can't beat this cost. And I think that the whole issue with people saying that, oh, I wish you airdropped it, or I wish you found some other way to distribute it, it's just bananas. If you want to be part of this token, you have to cough up your own cash to go buy it. You're going to become a whale on the Coinos blockchain. You're going to be able to do a lot of things. You're going to be able to be a bondholder. You could potentially be a block producer, or you can just be a speculator. Regardless, all 3 players have to put money into this blockchain in order to get any value out of it, because you were not airdropped this token. You actually had to buy it. I mean, unless you're one of those guys sitting around with 300,000 CPUs mining this, which I don't think you are. If you do, I want to know how many CPUs you have. Please tell me. But the reality is that 1 cent per token for you to access potentially what could be a really amazing blockchain is just bananas. Buy it. Just shut up and buy it. The big elephant in the room is governance. I see a lot of people who are concerned about the fact that the whales are going to be impactful in a negative way to the entire ecosystem. And the reason why is because in a lot of other blockchains, the whales can sometimes cause a lot of harm. What people are doing is they're using a past result and trying to project a future pretense. At the end of the day, this is not a proof of work blockchain. We actually don't know what the consensus mechanism is, but it's not going to be a proof of work blockchain, which means that the block producers are not miners in this case. So if you're a whale, you're not going to see the same issues that you see with Bitcoin or any other proof of work network. On top of everything, the mining farm, which really is just one guy. It's one guy with the address that's the most ridiculous address there is. His address is 1337. Like, why? How did you end up with that? I mean, how? Anyway, So the mining farms who are mining this token, the mining farm, which is mining this token, is really in it for profit, right? If they're able to sell the token at a profit, which they are, they probably don't have an interest in governance. But even if they do, they want to maximize their token value. So it's likely that they're not going to self-sabotage their blockchain. One of the biggest things people look at is the fact that mining farms actually hold the largest amount of tokens. And the question becomes, do these mining farms have an impact on the actual governance of the chain once it launches? We don't know the answer to that, but I'm going to say that that's probably not going to be the case, because I don't know how many tokens are being held by farms. We have about 63 million tokens that's already been minted right now. Let's say half of them, I don't even want to put the number to that, because I'm quite sure that the Koinos team is buying these tokens and stashing them on the 800 plus addresses on this blockchain right now. How many of them are actually held by mining farms? I really don't know. But out of 63 million, let's say a quarter of it is. So what's 63 divided by a quarter? 63 divided by 4, my handy calculator here. 16 million coins. Out of 16 million coins, I'm pretty sure at 16 million tokens, as a value, 1 cent goes to 2, 3, 4, 5, $1. These miners are going to be dumping this token like crazy. And once they dump the token, someone else is going to find that $1 is a great buy-in point, right? And all of a sudden, you're going to see that the number of wallets that hold, an absurd amount of tokens, like 1 million tokens, are going to be reduced slowly and slowly. I mean, look at every other blockchain out there. Eventually, any blockchain that actually succeeds, the people who hold a very large amount of tokens but don't want to be part of the blockchain, they just want to, speculate and make money off of it, they're going to dump. And that token is going to go into the liquid supply, and it's going to give other people opportunities as the blockchain grows. So people who are super interested in the blockchain now, they're in it for 1 cent. If you know this blockchain is going to succeed, if you know that this blockchain has a chance to succeed, then you're going to come in at 1 cent. The guy who's buying in at like 50 cents in the future, he doesn't have access to this information, so he's going to look at it at a different point of view. The blockchain will still be developed and still growing, so he's going to buy in at a different price. And therefore, eventually, all of the token holders who hold tokens for speculation, in the millions at least, they're going to dump this token, and they're going to dump it for profit, and it's going to be distributed and shuffled around. So I'm really just not worried about distribution in general. The other thing that is, on my mind about governance is that if we look at other blockchains, a proof of work blockchain, there is no governance in that situation, right? Some blockchains have this approach where people get to vote, right? That's called proof of stake. And another form is called delegated proof of stake, where the number of voters have been reduced to 21 witnesses, and those 21 witnesses act on behalf of all the other token holders. That is mainly a graphene setup. We're talking about Steam, we're talking about EOS, right? And in those areas, governance is really done through a delegated voting system. If you think about it, there's no checks and balances. And when we read the white paper for Coinos, they talk about checks and balances. And how is that really going to work? We don't know this information yet. I'm only speculating. But when we talk about governance in Coinos, they talk about bondholders, they talk about block producers, and they talk about generic stakeholders, regular token holders, right? And if you think about how this works in almost real money, bondholders, they generally have to lock their money up for a certain period of time. They collect an interest rate, and then they receive that end holding principal back. In that process, there's a certain time delay. In that time delay, the bondholders don't want to receive their money back when their money is worth less. So there is no reason for a whale who wants to be a bondholder, or any person, any stakeholder who wants to be a bondholder, to receive a token that's worth less in the future. Now, the bond holding period may be very short. It could be a couple of days, it could be a couple of months, it could be years, but that bond holding period is going to be long enough such that the bondholder would not vote for any proposals that could harm the overall value of the token. So if you're a giant whale and you want to be a bondholder, you would want the token to remain or increase in value. The only item that you can play around with is that interest rate. So people talk about inflation and interest rate in a really negative way. But the reality is that this is a brand new blockchain, and inflation, or actually rather interest rate, which causes the token to inflate, pays for a lot of the functions on a blockchain that otherwise someone else would have to pay for. So you have to have a high inflation to start the blockchain off. The cool part about this is that you can change the inflation rate without a hard fork. When we looked at Steam, they actually had the inflation rate set, I think, at 12% at some point, and reduced by 0.5% every single year, you have to go through a hard fork in order to change the number on Steam. On Coinos, on the other hand, you should be able to change that inflation rate without having to do a hard fork. Now, I said this in the last video, and you can actually read a lot of the articles that the Koinos group has published throughout the internet. In these DPoS systems, people select these witnesses, and the witnesses write blocks. The witnesses who also govern the chain are writing blocks. Now, in all of the articles that I've read from the Koinos group, block producers should not be in governance. Block producers should be paid to write blocks. They are a machine. Their whole purpose is to write things to a blockchain. So they should not be involved in governance. So the only thing that a block producer would actually want to vote on would be to increase the fees that they collect, or not really fees, but increase the rewards they get for writing blocks. What we don't know is what is the cost for a block producer to operate, and how much money do they actually need to stay in business. We don't know what that number is just yet. But when the blockchain goes live, I'm pretty sure we're going to see exactly how much it costs for a block producer to operate their network. And once we have an idea of that, we can adjust the inflation rate so that they're fairly paid for. Okay, so the last group of whales that we're going to talk about are run-of-the-mill, average daily Joe speculators. These guys are here only for money. I mean, I don't know how many token holders in the 850 plus wallets that exist right now are speculators. They could just be people, spending $15,000 buying 1 million tokens, and then the second this thing goes to the moon, if it does, they're going to sell. Say this token goes to $1, they sell the whole 1 million token stash, and there's going to be a ton of people out there who are looking at a $1 Koinos token when it goes live, right? And they're going to say, man, this is a steal. I wish I got it at 1 cent. Those guys who are buying this token right now at 1 cent and dumping it at $1 when it becomes $1, they're going to be gone. Joe Schmo, everyday whales. Nobody cares about them because they're not beneficial to the network. Hopefully you kind of understand how this mining process works, and when the testnet goes live in April, none of this is really going to matter anymore, because the people who are interested in the token will have the token already, and if they want to generate more of the token, they're going to use that 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, who knows how many millions of tokens they will have, but they're going to use that stash of tokens to be block producers, to be bond holders, to basically do anything to create yield in the system. If you're really concerned about distribution, don't buy the token. In fact, any of you guys, stop buying the token, let the price of it tank down below 1 cent. I'll buy it.